The all-new WRX had a controversial launch, even by today's standards. While it is flawed, the new Subi absolutely delivers what is promised of a WRX, even in its base form. If you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. Thank you for helping me reach 20,000 subscribers. So the WRX may be all new, however, it rides on an architecture that has been out for quite some time. It's the Subaru Global Architecture, and that's a great platform to underpin this thing. Also new for the WRX is the GT trim. Let me familiarize you now with the specs you can equip the WRX in. The trims are quite simple. You have the base, which is sitting here next to me, then the premium, limited, and that all-new GT trim, which is a true Grand Touring spec as it involves all of the luxurious features that Subaru was willing to put into this thing, and all of the sporty stuff too, which is frustrating because some of the stuff, including an adaptive dampening system, is not available at all with the manual transmission. At least for now. I feel like Subaru will make some sort of special edition with a manual transmission that'll include that stuff. At least I'm hoping they do. Now, all WRXs will have LED headlights, and I must add, they are actually my favorite part of the design this year. If you want steering responsive headlights, that'll come with the Limited and GT. LED fog lights will be there on the premium trim, as will a windshield wiper de-icer. Kind of a nice feature that Subaru throws into a lot of their cars. But that's not as important as getting a good deal. Thankfully, the dealership that I borrowed this WRX from, Royal on the Eastside in Bloomington, Indiana, sells all of their new cars without a markup. The staff there are knowledgeable and transparent. If you're looking for a new Subaru, Audi, or VW, check them out. The next biggest change to the WRX is insignificant on paper. Under the hood is the FA turbocharged engine. It's a 2.4 liter Boxer 4, making about 271 horsepower, and a pretty reasonable 258 pound-feet of torque. And it's going to hold that from about 2,000 RPM to 5K. Now, this was initially a disappointment to some people because it comes off as a 3 horsepower improvement over the previous car, and it is indeed a 3 horsepower improvement over the previous car. However, this was always one of the more powerful vehicles in the segment. They didn't need to give it any more power. What was more so the issue was the power band, how the thing responded. That is definitely improved. With more displacement than before, the 2.4 liter feels a little less peaky than the old 2 liter FA20. It also has a new wastegate design. It doesn't feel as dead outside of boost as it did before, and engine response feels improved, which makes sense since it's running at less boost pressure. The FA24 is also supposed to be better built to handle modifications if you like to ignore your warranty. And it sounds very Rexy. However, even though it is a twin-scroll turbocharger, there's still a noticeable lag to it, but that does give it some of that turbocharged character that the WRX has been known for forever. It is overall an improvement over the previous engine. Also an improvement is the 6-speed manual transmission. I have the short shifter equipped here. A lot of these cars are going to be shipped with this, and it offers a great feel. It's nice and notchy, maybe a little bit less so than it was in years past, which is a good thing. This still kind of feels like you're slamming a hammer in the gearbox every time you shift, which I guess can be a positive trait depending on who you are. It's also smoother in terms of engagement when it comes to the clutch. And if you don't want to row your own gears in the WRX, you can get a CVT, an SPT, which simulates a traditional automatic transmission and uses 8 pre-selected ratios, and then it has quicker downshift times than the previous CVT. Jokes aside, Subaru's new performance transmission is still a confusing choice on paper, but I might actually drive this newly revised CVT in GT form here soon, so subscribe for that. It's supposed to be vastly improved from the last car. You do have SI drive modes if you get the automatic. That's something that you don't get in the manual transmission. Automatic cars will come with a different version of the all-wheel drive system, whereas the manuals will get the venerable continuous all-wheel drive, which functions like a 50-50 split most of the time until you need to divert power differently. The result is a aggressive hold on the road at all times, but I'll try to push that a little bit here soon with a 0 to 60 test. This is an all-wheel drive manual transmission car. Really, the best way to launch this thing is take it to 5,000 RPMs and either try to slip the clutch or just kind of dump it, and I am not doing that. So I'm gonna be easy on the girl and just kind of get a real world, how fast is this thing number. Now for this test, I'm going to shut off traction control, turns it into its track mode. Press and hold, and now it completely disables the systems. Oh, that was not good. That does feel pretty fast. I think with a better second gear shift, I could have even improved that. So with a little bit lighter throttle on the launch there and still bogging it down, this thing has enough torque and aggressive gearing to really get you some decent results. 0 to 60, 6.1 seconds is more than respectable. And if you drive this thing like you hate it, mid 5 seconds should be easily possible. When it comes to wheels, you'll have 17-inch alloys on the base trim with 18-inch wheels on every other spec. There's still a nice amount of sidewall. You also get a proximity key on everything except for the base, along with a spoiler there on everything except for the base. It's kind of unfortunate that we don't get the big rear wang from the STI on anything anymore. And if you didn't already know, the STI has suspended itself until it can find a way to come back mean and green. I usually keep aesthetics talk to a minimum, but I have to address the controversy. In person, I find the body lines to be aggressive and unique, especially around the rear. I love the taillights and quad exhaust, but that body cladding is as absurd as you think. They've also tried to work in aero into here, so you can see very prominently venting from the front wheel well. You can see the dimples in the plastic itself, which I do find interesting because in 3rd grade, I remember finding out that golf balls have the dimples there to improve airflow. And so that's exactly what Subaru did here. And back then I always thought, well, why don't they shape cars like that? And Subaru actually labels the rear taillights there, I think, as a volcanic magma, which is fitting given that a lot of people online label the whole car's aesthetics as a steaming pile of. But tell me what you guys think in the comments section, because all of this is subjective. One nice touch, you can quickly swap this fake vent for an aftermarket F1 type rain light if you desire to. More important than the looks is the passing power. The car continues to pull hard above 50 miles per hour, and the clutch has made smooth starts and shifts much easier than it was in the past. It's fun and forgiving to commute with. But the overall performance at max is really not an improvement over the previous generation, unfortunately. Now, if we're bringing this thing up to highway speeds, we're about 65, you are looking at about 2,500 RPMs in 6th gear. When it comes to road noise, the WRX is bearable. I don't think it has an offensive amount of wind noise or tire noise, but both are present in ways that I, would hope to not be the case for a car that's always going to start out over $30,000. I can forgive it here on the base level. This is kind of the point. It's a stripped down car. It's not too over the top, but if I'm, buying a $40,000 version, I'd want it to be a little bit more serene than it is, just like the rest of the interior. It's overall lackluster for a car that's in the $30,000 realm, especially when you compare it with some of the other cars it's now competing against. But that cheap look is really dramatized by the dual 7-inch infotainment screen setup that you'll find here at the base spec. It looks like a Nokia and Fisher-Price collab, and comes with, at least a few physical buttons here. That way, you can quickly change the volume or shut off the radio. You can quickly change the temperature, get on your defrosters. And if you jump to the premium, you will get an 11.6-inch screen straight from the Outback that looks more fitting. Both setups have adequate resolutions, a slow yet sensible UI, wired Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. But I do wish that they just focused on giving you a better quality screen with these same physical HVAC controls of the older cars. You'll have analog gauges on every single WRX. It's clean, simple, and still looks performance focused. As does the steering wheel, which is leather on every WRX and has a flat bottom. Although I wish they redesigned the center airbag look here because it just doesn't match the rest of the wheel. It feels durable, but yeah, it's just a slew of different hard touch plastics everywhere. You do at least have a nice soft
elbow rest on the doors. With the base spec, you can option a better center console, and that's standard on the upper trims.
At least in the past, that nicer console also got a height adjustment. This one is made out of laughably cheap plastic, unfit for joint support, and it sits super low. The WRX is not about offering an upscale interior, so I can accept this affordable feel, but at the very least, it comes with automatic climate control and 6 speakers, which aren't going to win awards for clarity, but the treble gets loud enough and it has adequate power. The 11-speaker Harman Kardon unit standard on the Limited shouldn't disappoint if sound's a priority. Premium specs get dual zone automatic climate control and heated front seats with a better cloth material than the base. Limited buyers get 10-way power adjustable ultra suede seats, but the GT gets exclusive Recaro seats, which is frustrating since I think maybe 5 people who buy CVT WRXs will even consider tracking them. But I do want honest answers from auto Rex people out there. Have you ever taken yours to the track? Those upper trim models also do see a slight improvement in materials,
so that cabin will hopefully help justify the price there. There is still an okay amount of storage in the interior, good side pockets, a couple nice larger cup holders. None will fit a 40-ounce hydro flask, but for a sports sedan, this is relatively practical. Base and premium buyers will have a 6-way adjustable seat, no lumbar adjustment included, although I will note I'm actually pretty comfortable in these, and I already tested them and found that they did a pretty good job at holding you in around corners at higher speeds.
The support for my 6'3" slender build is good. It seems big enough to accommodate drivers wider than myself too. For me, the best attribute to the WRX cockpit would be visibility. The low beltline helps with confidence on the road.
But overall, Subaru did not completely transform the WRX's interior. It doesn't feel like it's reached another level of quality that it did in the past. It just feels like it's more up to the times and not being completely left in the dust. Sitting behind myself in the back seat, I actually have a pretty good amount of knee room for this small of a vehicle. The bigger issue is that my head is touching the roof. It does feel narrow. There's a large transmission hump here. Premium trims will have USB ports back here, but no WRX will have rear vents. Still, if I can scrape by here at 6'3" in both the front and the rear, I would say that the back seats are sufficient for the small family willing to compromise. The trunk of the WRX is a respectable space, but actually notably smaller than a lot of other compact cars. And this kind of makes sense because, you know, it's all-wheel drive. It kind of has that lower belt line going. However, I would at least want a spare tire if I'm gonna have this level of space in here. It's still more than usable. It's just not as tall as I was hoping for. But a little weekend getaway for 4 people should be no problem with the WRX. And if you want to go to the track, you can fold down the rear seats. But I hope that I live to see the day where Subaru finally decides to make a hatchback WRX again.
Now let's get back to that manual transmission. The clutch bites less abruptly this year and is weighted nicely.
It's a little bit more forgiving, it's a little bit smoother, just it's not quite what the GTI and Civic Si is. But at the same time, you know, people that buy these, again, you have to take into account the kind of experience they're looking for. This is for the person who wants to feel like they're driving a rally car. They're not sending it sideways over gravel or jumping it over small woodland critters. They're driving it on roads like these. Steering is more numb than what I would want, but it reacts immediately. You almost always have grip even on this really uneven surface here. The turbo pulls you out. It's so easy to get lost in the acceleration there through corners on rougher back roads like this. It's just a really fun experience, one that the WRX has delivered in the past and still does today, and it's the most important part of the car. The steering weight, honestly, it almost feels a little lighter than even like a Mazda CX-5. If they could just have a little bit better build up to the steering weight, I think that could give you a more natural feeling to the steering, something that it kind of lacks at the moment.
As a result of this, the GR86 I drove recently had a much more predictable front end, but that car made me really appreciate the WRX for its sure-footedness. Not just from the all-wheel drive, but the suspension. this feels glued to all roads. The gearing of the 6-speed manual is also perfect for this setup. They tweaked the upper gear ratios for 2022. As a whole, it's not so aggressive to where highway RPMs are a nuisance, but it still has enough bite for rapid acceleration and lots of interaction during spirited drives.
Plus, revving, pretty reasonable in this thing. You don't really have to wind the thing out. I'm not even getting over 4,000 RPMs here, and you can have a good time. And if we start bringing the thing up to a little bit higher speeds here, oh wow, it just feels very buttoned down. Heel toe downshift's pretty easy. And the steering is precise. And as you start to put more load onto the tires, you get some feedback there. So it's not completely numb, but while it is precise out here and it feels like a weapon on poor roads, I think if you're, taking this to a track, you're just gonna have more fun with something that's a little bit more technical, something that, has more steering feedback when the car is at lower speeds. So this just won't give you that level of engagement, but it does feel immensely potent. And it's definitely easier to drive than what they were in the past. Despite this also becoming more forgiving on rough roads, they've done a good job at keeping the body motion there in check. Really, it comes off as a very balanced car. If anything, maybe a little bit front heavy. Good brakes too.
Although some have reported the need to upgrade the brakes for track use. For the street, they're easy to modulate and effective. The most entertaining part about the WRX, just like before, is its capability. The brisk, boosted acceleration is only interrupted by crisp shifts from the notchy gearbox. My short throw shifter is a recommended option. The intense grip now meets even more poise around corners too. And finally, the suspension no longer bullies you.
When it comes to your day-to-day experience, comfort in the new WRX is improved. There's no getting around the firmness. It stays very composed though, and it doesn't feel like it's crashing over the bumps in a similar manner as the previous car.
For a better variation between sport and comfort, Subaru does offer adaptive dampening now, but only on the dastardly GT trim. This includes more drive modes than the SI drive of the regular auto models. I'll test that out as soon as I can, but even with my base setup, my spine can finally recommend a WRX. But can my wallet? As far as running costs and dependability goes, the last gen WRX suffered big clutch problems at first. Some people reported grinding issues too, but after a 2018 revision, virtually any transmission issues stopped. The FA20 was reliable too, unless modified and beat on, at which point the connecting rods were a weak point. The AC was temperamental, especially early on, and there were a couple other more miscellaneous issues reported, including bad batteries or parasitic draw. Since this car is all new, I can't say much, but the previous car had a respectable history and this shares many powertrain components with that. WRX resale has always been great too, but the biggest hit in running cost is the gas mileage. Gets 22 combined and runs on premium. This is more expensive to fuel than most full-size four-wheel drive pickups these days.
Also, there's a limitation when it comes to safety equipment. So the WRX with the manual transmission does not come with any sort of eyesight. Blind spot monitoring is optional. If you get the automatic, you'll have adaptive cruise, lane centering, departure, forward collision mitigation, so automatic braking there. And if you get the limited trim, that will include a emergency steering assist, which can basically maneuver the car in an emergency braking scenario. That also uses the blind spot monitoring system. That way you don't cause another accident.
In a car that's supposed to be able to handle family duties, it would be nice to offer some of that on the manual, but I feel that most Rex buyers don't care. Historically, the WRX has not had a premium or soft-hearted disposition. It's been about giving everyday people an affordable way to drive a car that embodies what us normies think a rally car is like. It's stiff, quick to react, has a ton of grip, a boosted engine, and a manly gearbox. Most others in the class have a more refined interior, offer better steering communication, and gas mileage. But the WRX is about maximum performance on any type of road. This new car does just that, but with a more forgiving suspension, a greatly improved clutch, a more responsive engine, and a few other tweaks that make this better to drive daily. My biggest gripe about the WRX is that Subaru seems to have a partial disconnect with the audience. Not to beat the skeleton of a dead horse, but in what world do car enthusiasts praise body cladding? Also, the Impreza uses physical HVAC controls. Why not stick with those here? You want to sell more WRXs to people who buy automatics? Don't try to compete against dual clutches with a CVT. And you have a phenomenal natural feeling steering setup in the BRZ. Why can't you do that here? It's like when you procrastinated an assignment until the last night because it's on a topic that you were well versed in. Yeah, the end product is still good, but it could have been better with just a little more thought. Regardless, if you're in the market for a capable sports sedan that's both aggressive and reasonable to live with, the WRX is a great choice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like to help me defeat the YouTube algorithm. If you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell. I'll catch you in the next one.
And if for some reason you don't want to row your own gears in your WRX, you can get a CVT. Oh, sorry. Damn it, I should have kept going. All right, one more time.